G'day guys, it is my last morning here in Vietnam, last morning in Ho Chi Minh City, and I had to come here. This is where the Vietnam War ended, when the North Vietnamese army crashed through these gates with a tank, thus taking control of Saigon and ending the war. This building here is the Reunification Palace, also known as the Independence Palace. Alright, let's go inside and I'll tell you a little bit more about it. Alrighty guys, we are inside the palace gates now. It's quite cheap to get in here. It's only 40,000 dong, which is basically nothing to a Westerner. So yeah, this entrance here, obviously the gates have probably changed over the years. The original gate was smashed by the tanks in 1975 to end the Vietnam War. This building here was the government building of South Vietnam. So when the North came and took control of this, they effectively took control of the whole of South Vietnam. So that's why they call it Reunification Palace, because they reunified Vietnam after it had been separated for so many years. These tanks are identical to the armoured vehicles from Tank Corps 203 2nd Army that made the famous breakthrough into the palace grounds through the Great Palace Gate on 30th of April 1975. So most times they use replicas in the museums, which is understandable. That have been sourced from other sources and not exactly the ones that were used in certain battles or whatever. We found that in Khe Sanh, when we went to the museum there, everything that was left there, the bunkers, everything, all the building materials were taken because the locals needed to rebuild everything. You know, the place had been absolutely destroyed, the whole country had been decimated pretty much. So it's understandable they would use every single resource they could to rebuild. So there's a lot of replicas and stuff's been brought in from outside to make it look authentic, but this here is the real deal. It's like a time warp. Apparently that it's been left as is pretty much. You can walk back in through all the government buildings as they were in the 1960s. This is quite a significant site. The Independence Palace, which was first opened to the public in 1990, has been the scene of many of the most important and dramatic events in Vietnam's history. So this was only built in 1962 because the old building was bombed. Okay, so there's the decision makers sitting around a table. This is where a lot of important decisions were made. As you can see, the decor is very 1960s. The energy in here, you know, being such an important place during the Vietnam War is pretty amazing. Okay, so this is the Banquet Hall. That's where they would all sit around and have a big feast, all the important people in the government. Any visiting dignitaries from overseas. The National Security Council Chamber. This room was used for meetings between the President and his senior officers and US advisors. The walls are hung with maps documenting the war situation in the South. On the 25th of March 1975, faced with the continuing advance of liberation forces, the President ordered his senior general to evacuate the city of Hue and mount a last-ditch defence at Da Nang. So in April of 1975, an American delegation assembled in this room to meet with the South Vietnamese president and his military leaders to find a solution to the situation where they were obviously losing, and they couldn't come up with any answers. You got all the maps there that they were using at the time to work out all their battle plans. Okay, so this is a conference room. At 7:30 p.m. on 21st of April 1975, the President of South Vietnam delivered his resignation speech in this room. He spoke about the country's situation in the wake of the Americans' decision to discontinue their support, and then resigned. Okay, this was the presidential office. Okay, so you got a photo there of the President in the centre in this room. You can see the same painting. So this is genuine, this is the way it was left. They haven't brought anything back in here and tried to replicate anything. It's genuine, it's the way it was. You know, the North taking over, their capital was there now. So this was used for a few functions and stuff, and still is, but it became symbolic to the reunification of the countries almost immediately, and was just left like this, from what I understand anyway. Presidential reception rooms in here. So the most important guest would be sitting in this throne-like chair here. President will be over there and all the other assembled guests on either side. So this room here is the Ambassador's Chamber. Ambassadors from different countries would come and give their credentials to the President there. So out here you've got private apartments for different government officials, I guess. They'll have their own little offices to have their own meetings. You've got beds in there. That's the detail in the chairs, that's insane. Okay, so the Vice President would meet with people in here. There's a picture of him meeting Richard Nixon in this room. There's lots of beautiful gardens surrounding the palace. Throughout the city and the hustle and bustle of Ho Chi Minh City, there are a number of gardens that are just really beautiful and a lot of open space for people to escape from that, you know, closed-in feel of all the tight streets and just the noise of the people. You get into the garden surrounded by the trees, a bit of shade, and it's pretty relaxing. It's pretty nice. Pretty cool. I love all these big open windows. Will let so much air in. Obviously, back in the day, air conditioning was not a thing as much as it is today in government buildings and the like, but you've got to keep everything cool somehow in these hot tropical areas. Okay, this looks like some sort of a wardrobe area. Okay, so you've got the presidential bedroom here. This is where the president would sleep. It's a bit flashier than the other guest chambers. Very spacious. Nice big bed. Another chair for chilling out in. President's big bathroom. Here you've got two toilets. Definitely is a bit of a maze around here. There's so many little hidden halls and stairways. There's a certain flow you're supposed to do to this place, but I've got it all out of sync. That's okay. This room, this might have been somewhere to relax and chill out when they're away from all the official functions, maybe. That's what I'm guessing. Yeah, this part of the palace is definitely the entertainment precinct, from what I can tell. You've got a giant pool table over there, piano, plus the cinema in there, the theatre, where they'd have movies and stage acts or whatever. Would have been all part of the greeting of international guests to give them a bit of an entertainment package thrown in. Might have shown some propaganda films here afterwards, no doubt. So here you've got the projection room for the cinema down below. That's awesome. There's the projection room up there I was just in. So this here is the First Lady's reception room. This is where all the girl stuff would happen. This is obviously the reading room, lots of books everywhere. Straight after the tanks smashing in the gates, I imagine this just being overrun by troops just pouring in after the tanks, helicopters landing on the roof like that. From what I've read, I don't think the last remaining people here gave up much of a fight. It was just like, okay, we knew this was coming, time to surrender and deal with the new life. Apparently you can get up on the roof. Oh yeah, this is pretty cool. This room of the four cardinal directions of peace was also known as the meditation room. The head of state would find the calm necessary to reflect with due care before taking presidential decisions determining the country's future. It also used this as an entertainment room for 100 or more guests. Okay, so right there you've got the flagpole, which flying is the flag of Vietnam, which everyone recognises it today. But in 1975, obviously the old flag of the Republic of Vietnam was flying. And one of the first things they did when they came in here was just pull that down, put up their own flag. Still remains today. So in the lead up to the actual fall of Saigon, when they crashed through the gates here, there was a bombing of the palace. An underground member of the Communist Party of Vietnam who had infiltrated the Air Force of the Southern Republic. He evaded detection by the local control tower and successfully dropped 2 bombs on the palace here. At 8:30 a.m, April 8th, 1975, 2 bombs were thrown down on the target right here. Boom, boom, hit those circles. So yeah, there was always a helicopter placed here for the president's use. If you need to go anywhere at short notice, bam, you had a helicopter at your disposal. I think I've seen the whole palace now, apart from the parts that are closed off, which is very little. Most of it is open. I would say easily 90% you can get into. Okay, I thought I'd seen everything here, but I hadn't. A lot of this floor I haven't seen. I just found the kitchen. Oh, a mixer robot. That's your Vitamix blender of the 1960s. I imagine it would have been a sweltering hot kitchen to work in here. Would have been incredibly hot. Ice cream freezer. So this is what a 5-star hotel kitchen would have looked like in the 60s. Okay, so this Mercedes was one of the many vehicles used by the president. Really nice gardens. Pretty cool in here under the trees. Very hot in the building. One thing to be aware of if you're coming here to visit the Reunification Palace. It is quite warm in there. I highly recommend checking this place out if you're in Ho Chi Minh City. It's definitely worthwhile checking out. It's such an important building in terms of the history of this country as it is today. Alrighty guys, I hope you enjoyed that video. I have to get out of here. That is the end of this little tour of the palace. Peace. Now it's time to rejoin the madness of Ho Chi Minh City. Woohoo! Oh man, I am riding motorcycle in Vietnam!